Hi, this is a follow-on from a video that I made very recently, and I will leave a link to it under here. It's called Brexit, the Plain Facts of Terrorism. Now, yes, I am very passionate in that video. It's a no-nonsense, as the title says, the plain facts of terrorism, and I think the level of passion that I expressed there is perfectly reasonable given the levels of actual terror that British people are now facing, because it is a terrorist threat to remove people's food and medicines and rights. That is a terrorist threat, and also to be putting the whole nation at risk of severe social unrest the minute that people are forced to go through rationing, be queuing up at food banks, queuing up at the councils on rations for medicines. Obviously there's going to be social unrest, and also even division of our nation in terms of Scotland and Northern Ireland choosing to become independent and remain with the EU, and thereby benefit from all the subsidies and protection of their rights as the EU upholds. Now, in that other video I explain in no uncertain terms, as indeed a different bias shares here, the plain facts that, look, Brexit is purely and simply about the British elite financiers, the Tory politicians, protecting their tax breaks and their tax havens, and that is all it is about. Now, I know that people, certain groups among the British populous, UKIP supporters, whatever, voted for Brexit on the understanding that, oh, you know, we're being ruled by Brussels and Brexit is going to set us free as an independent sovereign nation. Now, though I understand how a lot of people would feel happy about that and would vote for that, and I am sorry to inform you, but it is a fact, and I'm not blaming you for making your choice, okay, but we all need to wake up to reality, you see. That is what I'm trying to share. The reality of the situation is that regardless of why the British people voted for Brexit, the only reason why we have Brexit is at the will and behest of the financiers, criminal financiers of Britain, and the actually criminal politicians of Britain, which includes this government, who imposed the referendum upon us purely out of their own self-interests. And those self-interests continue well after Boris Johnson's now promised hard Brexit. Okay? So we need to understand that, look, this whole issue of Brexit and why people on the ground were supporting it is completely divorced from the reasons why we had the referendum in the first place, and who is in control of Brexit, and what now they are using Brexit to deliver to themselves. And so, yes, I am passionate because I've done the research, and I'm just somebody, grassroots, pure grassroots, and a total independent individual, a carer. I live on a minimum wage, okay, I'm a CSA survivor. My grandfather gave, you know, I never knew my grandfather, he gave his life for fighting for all the rights that we've enjoyed and the social advances that we enjoyed as a nation since World War II. Now, the fact is that the Tories, yes, they've stripped away all those progressions that we made as a society, even right down now to they're ready to scrap our human rights and impose this Bill of Rights upon us, which none of us even know what they consist of yet, but we can guarantee it'll be, if you're rich, you've got rights, and if you're poor, you've got no rights. That'll be the basic gist of it. And nobody's even seen it. You know, this is allegedly a democratic government, okay? So what I'm explaining in that other video with passion, so, you know, if you can't stand passion, human passion, which, again, I understand, I don't judge people for that. I know we've all grown up in a psychopathic world in the sense that we're governed by psychopaths, where human emotion is frowned on and judged as indicative of low intelligence. Okay, so, you know, I understand what I'm up against as an individual, passionate human being. Okay, so now Phil Morehouse here is explaining that yes, this is precisely about protecting the tax breaks of big corporations that the Tories and the financiers are all invested in, because Europe has taken steps to implement strict tax and banking regulations that prevents huge sums of money being sucked out of EU nations and then stored in these offshore accounts, these tax havens, and also giving themselves, you know, getting their politicians to write legislations that allow corporations to get away with paying minimal or even no tax, you see. All of this, the EU tried to stop, because we all saw what happened in Greece. We all witnessed that. And people have learned from it. And that's why the EU is taking steps to prevent that scenario happening in every nation in Europe. These corporations they must pay taxes. They need to pay taxes, because Europe isn't, you know, a never-ending well of cash. It's coming from somewhere. It's the way a financial system works is that, you know, it creates profits, and then profits are ploughed back in to create more profits. There needs to be a sustainability about it. It can't be just a grab, a smash and grab, and then the people ultimately are left with nothing, you see. And that is precisely what has caused this global banking collapse, because the legislations were lax, because there's been a huge smash and grab. And at the end of the day, who is left to bear the consequences and losses of it, and even the responsibility of repaying the accumulated debts now as a result of all this actually criminal activity? Now, Phil here is asking, you know, why are Brexiteers so desperate for a 2019 Brexit? And so, you know, I'm explaining, I've already explained, and he's explaining here exactly why. Yes, it is purely for the tax breaks. The true Brexiteers are the top echelons of British society. You know, they want to keep their tax breaks, and they will put the whole country at risk. Now, as Phil, towards the end of this video, he asked the question like, you know, I don't see really how they hope to win, because it's only going to be a temporary thing, because, you know, at the end of the day, Britain's going to be broken as a nation. So, and also people are going to rise up, and so, you know, I don't know how they hope to achieve by this. So now here we have Robespierre, somebody who calls himself Maximilian Robespierre, does excellent videos. I'll leave you the links to both these videos, and do watch them. So, you know, he asked people to put comments at the end, and so, you know, I've explained here in no uncertain terms about what will happen, very likely to happen, according to my research and understanding of history as well, and knowing my enemy as I know them. What we're facing, you see, after Brexit is we will literally be a captive populace. We'll be a captive population under rule of a government that has promised and pledged to scrap our human rights, workers' rights, environmental protection laws, also committed to upholding present tax loopholes and tax breaks and offshore havens, okay, that basically they wish to eradicate all the social progressions that were made since post-World War II. We have a government that is committed to returning Britain to the standards of Victorian Britain, the social standards of Victorian Britain, all of which were erased after World War II. But they are committed to that. And so what is going to happen is that after Brexit, there is going to be major social unrest. Boris Johnson will then use his powers to declare a state of emergency. There will be curfews, protests will be banned, there will be rationing, cities very likely will be cordoned off, there will be restriction on freedom of movement, and thereafter a police state, literally, troops on our streets. So they're imposing. So basically now that's when people will wake up to the fact that this is war. What we've been going through is a terrorist attack by a set of criminals. And I'd go so far as to call them treasonous criminals, because they have attacked the very structure of our United Nation as a kingdom. So, you know, what we're facing is really serious. And then after that, thereafter, the police state, well, what hope can we have of any fair and free elections in such circumstances where even the populace doesn't have our human rights, and facing a banking and building society bailing, rising interest rates. As the pound falls, interest rates will rise. And how are the British people going to be able to pay their mortgages? You need to think about these things, because if Britain's going to be a tax haven, we are going to need to raise interest rates. They're going to have to raise interest rates very high. And that does mean large portions of people losing their homes. Are you in any position when you're in the middle of losing your home to stand up for your rights? They will demoralise the population and control us. Now, apparently, I'm being over the top here. I'm being scaremongering, alarming, but I am not. I am sharing the facts of the situation. Okay, these are the facts of the situation. I will leave you the links here that I'm sharing. As Phil explains in the video, a different kind of bias, he explains that unless we're out by this year, all these financiers, Tories, whatever, will have to pay the taxes. You see, all of this is going, because we're still in the EU, and it's all going to come into effect, and there'll be no avoiding it for them. So that's why they're so desperate to get out now. And that's why we need to get desperate, well, not in a case of desperation. We need to get righteous. We're not desperate. We've got our rights. We've got our food. We've got our medicines, okay? So we need to stand up strong, because it's not us who are under threat. They're threatening us, okay? It isn't us who are under threat. It's them who are under threat of having to fork out, repay, invest back into the society that they've literally robbed it from. All of the tax breaks and funds that they've been sucking out of the EU. And to such a degree that we witnessed what happened to the people of Greece. Don't forget, the banking bailing happened in Greece. People had money just taken out of their accounts by the banks. Understand what a bail-in is. If you've got a bank account, that bank can take money out of your account as part of its bail-in. And in Britain, as I say, they've extended the powers. This Tory government has extended those same powers to building societies. So what does that mean? Will they own a portion of our homes. These are all very, very important things to think about. And, you know, the fact that, yes, they want Britain to be a tax haven. So, you know, check out tax havens, how the populous live under tax haven. Britain can't prosper as a tax haven, but it can. It can prosper for the people that most want Brexit in this society, that have engineered this Brexit situation. That's who it will profit. They do not care about anybody else. They do not care how destitute and impoverished the people of Britain are. They will not care how many alternative news medias out there point fingers at Britain and say, oh, look what's happened to the British people. They will not care. It will happen just as it's been happening in Venezuela, just as it's been happening all over the world with oppressed peoples. I mean, take a look at Palestine, the levels of crime committed there in the illegal occupation of lands, you know, but the world carries on, doesn't it? Everybody just carries on. Nobody really has cut off relations with Israel, have they, as a result? Or nobody's cutting off relations with the American administration right now, with the crimes they're committing. We will be on our own, and it will be back to Victorian Britain. There you go, Brexit Britain will be a huge tax haven in the middle of Europe. UK will prosper. No, 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 no. We won't prosper. We will not prosper at all, because this Brexit is not for our benefit. It is for the benefit of the ruling class, the aristocracy, you know, and we're now dealing with a corporate aristocracy. That is what they're delivering us to, the level of back to a feudal system with the average British population, 80% of us, literally lowly serfs to the corporate aristocracy. That is exactly what we're going back to. That is exactly Victorian Britain. That is everything that the people of World War II thought they'd stamped out, and really they had, and it is up to us to stand up now for their rights, that their lives cannot be thrown away, erased, as that everything they fought for can be erased as a failed social experiment, according to the victors who will be writing the history. And in this case, the victors are these criminal Tories who are guilty of terrorism. I mean, I have explained it very clearly. EU law explains it very clearly that the actions that this government have committed against Britain and the British people are acts of terrorism. And, you know, Cabinet ramps up no deal planning. They're desperate. They are desperate to cling on to their tax havens. They are desperate. Because also all the ins and outs of their dealings will be fully exposed. That's the other thing. We will know them for the criminals that they are. And how far will a criminal go in order to avoid prosecution? In order to hold on to their loot? How far will they go? Yes, we know the criminals, they will kill. They don't care how many lives they bring to ruin. We've witnessed it. A government that does not care, that they've left disabled and sick people suffering and in destitution. That they've driven them to suicide. This is the level of callousness we are dealing with. It is a callousness that the average British citizen cannot comprehend. But it is time to understand that, I'm sorry, that is where these people are at. That is where they've been at for centuries. And they've only been forced to behave with a modicum of humanity by the will of the people after post-World War II. And thereafter, it's been very difficult, a long, drawn-out, difficult process for them to gradually erase, bit by bit by bit, inch by inch, all of the progressions that were made, until finally now they deliver us this Brexit, by which they, yes, As I've said in my previous video, they're pulling us out of Europe in order to dump us back into Victorian Britain. And don't forget, it was this same Tory government, the same Tories, that took us into the EU in the first place without even a referendum. And at that time we were an independent nation. We had our own businesses, our independent businesses, our nationally owned industries and services. We were a socio-capitalist society and we were working well. But we've always been under attack from that same criminal consciousness that opposed the lot of it right from the start. The Tories opposed the development of the establishment of our NHS. The Tories opposed the social welfare programmes. The Tories opposed social housing. The Tories opposed workers' rights, unions, everything. The Tories have traditionally and always opposed them. Apparently, it's verging on communism to ask for human rights and workers' rights and environmental protection laws and to demand that corporations pay their taxes. Apparently that's Soviet communism. Seriously? Well, if that's Soviet communism, these people are what? Pinochet and Stalin. That is what we are dealing with. So, you know, here we go. Brexit chaos, army ready for deployment to assist police in event of no deal. And, you know, this, again, this was last year. And why? Why has there been no deal? Precisely because the EU is refusing to forego on its tax legislations. No, any deal with Britain will include Britain following EU tax regulations, okay? And the Tories just do not want it. So there's no way that they can broker any deal with the EU because the prime card on the table is that Britain must adopt these EU tax regulations and banking regulations. You see? So it's like the Tories and all their criminal financiers are like, oh, no, that's it, hard Brexit. I'm not giving up my millions and billions stored in tax havens. I'm not going to show all my income and disclose all my income to the EU. I am not doing that. They aren't going through my books because they're all involved in criminal activities. And we cannot allow this Brexit, this idea of all sovereignty from Brussels. All right, yeah, maybe one day, if you really feel that the EU is that oppressive, then, oh, okay, then, yeah, let's leave the EU. But let's make sure first that we actually leave as a united nation and with a nation that is capable of standing independently in this world with our own independently owned industries and businesses and alongside nationally owned interests, as we were when we entered the EU, okay? It is only fair in any marriage, you know, what you take it into it. Is one party going to be left with absolutely nothing when they leave the marriage? It's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, we know you invested your house and all your businesses and money into this, and it all belongs to them now. But, yeah, sorry, you're just going to have to leave with nothing. Yeah, but they've got all my properties as well as their own. They've got everything I had as well. No, go away. You know, that would not be acceptable in the divorce courts. Why should it be acceptable in the event of Britain leaving the EU for the British people that we've lost everything? That's not a win. That is not a win, is it, for the British people? Whether, you know, even the people who voted Brexit, we cannot say that is a win for us. So I am very, very concerned about this now. And apparently there is going to be a march on the 19th of October in London. And I've written to the march people and I said, look, you know, this needs to be in every town and city across Britain because not everybody can go to London. And we need to take action like we've never taken before. Peaceful, non-violent action as displayed for example, by the people of Iceland, who said a big resounding no to what was basically a coup from their government, was going to dump this huge debt on them that the people of Britain have already had that dumped on us. We've already been repaying, we've already been paying it. 130,000 of us are dead through that, the austerity that's been apparently needed to repay that debt. Okay, so now we've had that, we've swallowed that, we bore the burden of it, we've borne the losses, we've suffered the losses of our loved ones and witnessed the destruction and destitution of the people of Britain. Now are we going to stand by and watch basically all of our rights and even our democracy just literally being crushed out of existence? Because, you know, how long will a state of national emergency last for? How long before it becomes normal? And who is going to be there? That's when the people of Britain will realise, look, you're a little tiny small country. You have nobody. If you have not got the protection of your legal rights, what have you got in this country? These are very, very perilous, serious times. And I will say this to you, Tories, okay, all you people at the top echelons of British society who've engineered this Brexit and hope to profit by it, who are putting people's lives on the line literally here, and even the unity of our nation, you are complicit in an act of terrorism against Britain itself as a nation, and that is a fact. And this plan to deploy the army tells me, it speaks volumes, because it strongly supports the understanding that you people know exactly what you are doing. You know it. And that's why you've got the army ready to assist police. Now that is a direct threat against the British populace of our government, threatening to deploy the army on our streets against the people who will be victims of your actually terrorist criminal conspiracy that is Brexit. So thank you for taking time to listen to people. I have tried to keep it down to be not so passionate as I was in the other video, but this is what's on the cards now, and that's why we do spread the word. Spread the word. I know very few people watch my videos. I'm an absolute nobody. People scoff at me, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. What I've survived in this society, what I understand, the work I do, which is mostly for children's rights, is what gives me the strength and courage to stand up and just speak out as one of you, an independent, individual British citizen.